Hi, guys. Welcome. Glad you all are here. Ah, hello, hello. Welcome to the ring. The Welcome to the double feature Creature Crypts presents Ring for September. Welcome, guys.
We are very excited to talk about this book.
Getting out all my super fancy tech again.
Your super fancy tech.
Yep, I'm getting out all my super fancy tech, making sure all of my mics and everything are set up. And then, sorry about the state of my office, guys. It looks worse than it is. There's like boxes, and I got a new chair, so this chair's hanging out. My daughter's been hanging out in here, so she's been like moving things around and playing with stuff, and it's been kind of chaotic lately. So I'm like, usually it looks a bit more aesthetic in here, but I feel like right now it just kind of looks a little chaotic. Forgive me.
Did you just use the word aesthetic as a verb?
I mean, it usually does look a little more aesthetic in here.
Yeah, but that's not.
What, are you gonna like criticize
No,
me
that's
now?
a pet peeve is that this modern use of the word aesthetic as a like that word on its own.
Well, pardon moi.
No, you're good. It's just that's why I was like, that's why I stopped. I was like, wait.
No, you're good. You're good. But also, piss off, I guess.
I know. Language evolves, blah, blah, blah. I'm old.
I literally couldn't care less. I could literally care less. I could literally care less.
I know what you're doing.
Does it, like, generally upset you?
It specifically upsets me.
It pacifically upsets you?
Yep.
What about Atlantically? Does it Atlantically upset you?
It also Indianly accepts me and North Sea upsets me.
Does it Red Sea upset you at all?
No, actually, not Red Sea upset.
Everybody who turned in today is like, we hate when Kenzie's not here.
Right.
Why isn't
it's
she
the
here?
Chaos Gremlins.
They're like, guys, come on. I really should pull up YouTube so I can see what these emojis are. I learned that in our our Girls from the Wild book launch. On our side of StreamYard, these emojis, they just come through as like text chat, like, so it's like
I see
colon face dash orange TV shape, and I'm like, I don't know what that is, but on YouTube it comes through, so I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm like, I should have that definitely open. Should definitely open that. Let's see. Okay. in just a few minutes, we'll get started. We open the room. We we open the room. We open the live at 7:15, and we get started at 7:30, just so that way everybody has a chance to kind of trickle in. Everybody has a chance to get situated and comfy. Nobody feels like they're like too rushed or anything like that. Because we know, depending on where you're at, 7:30 is like a good start time. 7:15 is just kind of like, hey guys. And we've also learned through our past life experiences. Hey guys, what's up? We've also learned through our past life experiences that some of us yes, yes. Some of us we will be here rushing to get our slides and everything open or downloaded, or we will encounter some kind of tech issue, or
we do not speak experience, of course. We've heard about it, a story.
We've had a friend tell us.
Yeah,
we've had friends who run YouTubes. It's us. We're the friends.
I don't think we convinced anyone with that.
But that way it gives everybody time. So that way if something's going on, we're all here. And at 7:30, everything will start. And nobody has to be mad. But at 7:15, everybody knows, what's up? What's good? The chat's living. Yeah. But let me look at our little agenda here. So some brief little reminders. We will announce our giveaway winner for our 1-year DFCC. I'm very excited. I was able to go back, look through, check out everything. Put in all the winners. Put in everybody who had entered from our post. I was like, what's the word? And do the wheel. So we'll be able to announce that at the end of our discussion. We'll have that we'll be announcing. We also have a reminder that we will be posting the calendar and the book vote over the next week. The calendar will get posted within the first week of October. The November book vote will get posted October 7th. So if you have themes, or if you have theme ideas, or if you have any recommendations for books, please let us know. Go message the Discord, send some recommendations in. I will let you guys know, December, we will be doing a Candy Cane Kills double feature. So we will be doing Candy Cane Kills and Candy Cane Kills again. If you have already read Candy Cane Kills, super great. I love that for you. You will be reading Candy Cane Kills again. If you haven't yet, you'll be reading we'll be reading both. They're both thinnies. I think for the month of December, it's totally achievable. We are going to plan out a read along. We might even, I have to talk to another group, but they are doing a planned out like read along for Candy Cane Kills. For Candy Cane Kills and going into Candy Cane Kills again. So I want to double check with them, and we might partner up for that for the first one, and then Candy Cane Kills again we will be looking into. So yeah, so that's going to be for December. So let us know what you guys want to do for November. I know last year's November, because it's in October. Yes, October we did The Beast You Are last year. Last November we did Sisters of the Lost Nation because it's
Oh
yes,
yeah.
it's Indigenous Peoples Month. So, if you guys have any recommendations, or any themes, anything you guys want to highlight or spotlight, let us know. Let's see. Claudia says, already read the first one, so I'm all set for that one. Perfect.
Yay.
We love to see it. Okay. So,
And
without
as a reminder, our October book is Here Lies a Vengeful Bitch.
yes, by Cody Crawley, correct?
I think so.
Yeah. Yes, Cody Crawley. My fun fact about that is that was actually originally recommended to me by Scarlett, John Wayne's girlfriend.
Oh, that's funny.
She was like, I don't know if you've read this yet, but you have to read this. And I was like, okay, sure, maybe. And then literally right after she had recommended it to me, like 3 other people popped out of the woodwork and was like, I don't know if you've read this yet. And then everybody started recommending it for October in the Discord. And I was like, I can take a hint, guys. We can
Yeah,
read
I
it,
hadn't
okay?
honestly heard of it until Claudia
Yeah.
posted about it and then recommended it. And I'm very
Also,
excited.
shout out to our crypt keepers. I love this for us because Ghoulies in the Crypt, shout out to y'all. We love when you guys make recommendations and it really shows. And we have some of the best times with it because, like, for example, when Mandy recommended Edenville, what we were able to do with that was so much fun, and how we were how we were able to rope Sam into everything. That was a lot of fun. Um, so yes, when you guys make the recommendations and we're able to spotlight and do things that y'all enjoy, um, it adds a whole other layer to this that just brings Kenzie, Laura, and I just so much like joy, satisfaction, engagement for like the love of what we do because we could talk about this all day, and we have. Laura and I have literally been on the phone with each other since about 3:30 today.
Yeah.
Talking since I finished the book. And I was like, we have to talk. I have so much to talk about before our discussion. So we could talk about this, the two of us, forever. That's not what this is for us. We really like having the community with you guys, and talking about things that y'all find interesting. So we appreciate you guys really steering the ship sometimes. It helps. And sometimes steering us in places where we never thought we'd go. And I think, and I love seeing that at 7:34 now because I think this is a perfect segue for this. I think The Ring is a great, great segue for this. I don't think I know Kenzie definitely didn't. Um, I know you and I talked about this earlier. You and I both we wouldn't have ended up reading this, I think, if The Crypt didn't end up really voting hard for The Ring.
Yeah.
Kenzie and I, we both really wanted Teleportasm to win. I actually at the beginning of this month, I was kind of like really spicy about it, and I read Teleportasm first. I was like, I'm gonna read this before anything else. Before I read anything else, I'm reading Teleportasm, which I highly recommend. It was great. If you're looking for some more physical media horror, Teleportasm was a ton of fun and excellent. I cannot recommend Shortwave or Josh. I think it's Josh Millison. I cannot recommend Teleportasm enough. It was a lot of fun. But I did not think. I would like to apologize to everyone in the Discord now before we even start this discussion. All of my comments that I had made about 15 days ago, I'm sorry. Sort of. I cannot believe that this book ended up being the absolute banger, in which I personally feel that it was. And Laura and I both did not think it was going to turn out that way. We really did not. And a lot of you are probably sitting at home like, I'm sorry, what? Listen, there's a reason you turn into this. There is a reason you come to the crypt, okay? And this isn't the first book we've talked about like this.
It's not for the expected.
It ain't gonna be the last, y'all. So we're glad to have you all here. Welcome. Welcome to the Double Feature Creature Crypt presents Ring by Koji Suzuki. We are your hosts, ladies and gents, goblins and ghouls. I am Kaylee. I am Kaylee Creates of Instagram. I am a cult classic and horror artist. I also am a spooky reader and horror enthusiast. I like to read things and then chat about them with you guys. I ended up coming to this platform as kind of like a trickle-down effect. I was not a big horror person, and then I ended up through the wonderful hands of my dear best friend here, who I met in college, ended up being gifted the chance to read Mexican Gothic, and it kind of started to steer me down new paths. And here we are, almost 7 years. Oh God! Here we are, 7 years later.
What age?
Our friendship is 7 years old. It has not been 7 years since I read Mexican Gothic. I need to be clear on that. That book is not 7 years old yet. But here we are, several years later now, and we do this together. And I do this with the fabulous Laura, who I'm going to let introduce herself.
I am Laura, aka Lady Tartan, on most platforms, and I'm here. Hi. I don't have much of an exciting spiel, but I am here.
Laura
is a lurk.
Laura is a lurker, but she's also, if you go to any events with me, 9 times out of 10, you'll see Laura with me. She is absolutely my +1, 9 times out of 10, anywhere I go. My husband, if there is a social event, he's like, so you're taking her? I'm like, oh, yeah. You say less. She is also where I am the golden retriever human. She is my human who speaks fluent author. When I meet authors and they're like, oh God, extrovert, Laura walks up and is like, hi, I speak fluent you. She's, I promise, harmless. She does a lot more than she gives herself credit for, and she's very, very, very smart. So there is a reason we're dear friends, and she is very, very talented and does a whole lot behind the scenes that you guys don't see. She just doesn't talk about herself enough. So, and then of course we also have who she's not here with us tonight. She's had a bit of a hard week. Bless her.
Including an encounter with a camel, which we will not be explaining.
She took a bit of a tumble around a camel this week. It's a whole story, guys. We'll have to have her explain it when she comes back.
Yeah, we'll let her tell you.
But she is recovering a little bit. Our bone witch, who you all know and love, Kenzie. Tiny Sun Studios on Instagram. She is currently not here tonight. She is just recovering from a really long week and getting to spend time with her husband. So she'll be back. Oh, what? She's okay. Yeah, she's okay. She's okay. She's just
resting.
She's just resting and recovering. And honestly, if I see Claudia and I see Ayana in the comments, and I see that there's probably 4 people viewing. I bet you $10 she's probably viewing right now, and she's probably Kenzie. Hold on, I'm sensing a presence. Kenzie, if you are in the audience, type an emoji. Send a camel. She's gonna be like, I don't want you guys to know I'm watching.
Well, now I'm not doing it.
She's like, I'm not gonna send it. You summoned her. Truth. Well, you know, guys, everyone's a little bit psychic. Some are just more psychic than others. But yes, so welcome. We're happy to have you all here. For those of you who are tuning in later, I hope you enjoyed the book. Welcome. We'll let you guys all know. This is for people who have read Ring. Going past this point, it is full of spoilers. We cannot be responsible for anything you may hear. If you pass this point, that's on you. You have been warned. All right.
I'd also like to add a little disclaimer at the top of things. We have done our best to figure out how to pronounce a lot of things. We may get it wrong, and for that we ask anyone's forgiveness. Who knows? We did our best, and we acknowledge this is
I think there's
not
also
our native language, so we have done our best.
There are also 2 more things we want to be disclaimers on for the specific topic of this discussion. One, we are not experts. We are earnest, just genuine good people doing our best to understand themes that spoke to us in this novel. And 2, there are going to be some themes that come up in this discussion that are going to be a little sensitive. Please know, Laura and we are doing our best to speak to them with the most care and tact and authenticity and care. I probably said care like 3 times, and I apologize, but just know that it is genuine. There is some subject matter within this novel that none of it is meant ill will, cruel, or in any form where you would find someone crawling into a well and filling the walls with hate from the things that we are saying. That is not the intention we are trying to give. So, with those things being said, we are going to move on to the first slide.
Get started.
Welcome for you guys being here. Let's see. That sentence didn't make sense, but we're happy to have you guys here. That sentence made much more sense. Also, y'all are in for a treat tonight because I'm running round 2, Electric Boogaloo. I'm running StreamYard again, so I'm getting to learn how to work more things, guys.
If you were here for our last reading sprint, it was again just us, and Kaylee figured out all the things.
It's a new day here in the crypt.
We're taking off our
so first we want to state we're taking Kenzie has worked so hard for us over the last year. She was really like y'all, you don't need me. she kind of shrugged us. She was like, "Be free, donkey, be free." We're like, "Okay." So it's our turn. The inmates are running the prison now. This book is definitely an onion. That's right, folks. So many layers. Don't know about you, but we had Shrek moments. We had so many Shrek moments. We had so many. There was a point where I think I texted Laura and I was like, oh my God. This book, I don't know if I want to cry or if I want to. And she goes, would you say it's got layers? And I was like an onion. Also, while we were doing research, I came across a YouTube video that was 100 hours of what was it called, Laura? It was 100 hours
Shrexophone.
Oh yes, Shrexophone. If anybody,
it's exactly like it sounds.
It's exactly like it sounds. I don't know if I'm allowed to post this in my own chat, but this is the Shrexophone. If you guys would like to have that for later, it actually slaps pretty hard. But for your next vibe, maybe recommend if you ever need to get out of the sads. So yeah, this book is an onion. You go into it thinking one thing and you leave just peeled back and raw. You leave so stripped
and crying,
so raw and crying. I'll state for the record, if you don't have a whole lot of like empathy and compassion for other people, or like curiosity on philosophical endeavors, this book might not be for you, and that's okay. It might not be for you. You might just want to leave it on the shelf. That's all right. But if those things scratch the brain just right for you, boy, does this book serve. This book serves breakfast,
I
lunch,
ran the entire gamut of human emotion reading this book. I think I felt everything. It was
this book woke up and made us waffles. Like, yeah, this book was a whole adventure. So I think the first thing we need to talk about to set this kind of up, to set our discussion up, is there's a big riff in the discussion. I say riff in the discussion. There's a big setup as things are going on. There's a very large setup in this ideology between Eastern thought and Western thought. And the influences that they hold over each other. Laura and I, earlier today, when we were going through and talking about some of this, we had noticed throughout the book, there are these little places throughout the novel that really, I'm like pulling up my slides so I can make sure I'm seeing what's next. Yep. Okay. There's these little spots throughout the novel that really highlight No, I'm going to back up. I think it's important to kind of take a look at it this way. We are reading it in America through a Western lens. We have a different cultural setup, a different cultural ideology. We have a different, whole different view than a lot of what is socially acceptable, socially taught, culturally constructed than a lot of the Eastern systems and belief, right? And while going through this, I kind of had to check myself a lot, especially in the beginning of the book, because in the beginning of the book, for sure, there were a lot of these little parts that just started to pop out. There were these pieces where it was like, let's see. I was going to say, Laura, if you have some ready to go, you can talk about them while I'm looking at mine.
Section of the blue tabs are the thing I think I noticed most when it came to the cultural difference is how people in the book responded when presented with the supernatural, either through a story or something else. And it's a lot more accepting than I think in Western cultures would be. Specifically when Ryoji is telling Asakawa about when he was on a school trip with the team, and one boy said he saw ghosts in the bathroom and he was terrified. And Ryoji saying, and of course, because he was so scared, they all believed him. I'm like, that would not happen in the UK or in the US. He would probably have just been made fun of for thinking he saw a ghost, whereas it was accepted. And then anyone else that is presented with this idea, there's always, even if they're like, I don't believe this, there was always a little bit there of, what if it's true? And I think to an extent, a lot of people feel that too. Like, I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but if I hear something's haunted, it's like, no, it's not. What if it is? But it's not as common or as culturally acceptable here. Like, you're meant to be a cynic. You're meant to not believe in things like that.
Right. Well, it's also, we don't teach, well, especially over here in like Western culture, there aren't necessarily lore and stories of a lot of the people of the land here, because so many of the people that are here are from so many different places that during the Great American Melting Pot, so much of it got melted away, correct? Right? Like when all of that happened, I mean, not saying that there's not native stories here, not saying that there's not native people here, not saying things like that, because very, very much so there is. But when there was the great push for migration, when there was the great push for, I mean, assimilation, a lot of that got lost. And so westward expansion, doing all of these things, when you have this kind of like conquer ideology at play, it's, you take away the stories, you take away anything that sets to make you different, you take away all of these things that make people unique, that ties them to their homelands, ties them to these places. It's harder to do that on the soil in which they are tied to. And so in Western culture, there's a lot more anchoring them to these stories. There's a lot more anchoring them to these
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of it that way. Because even, like I mentioned, it wouldn't happen in the UK. More so, it wouldn't happen in England. Scotland is a very superstitious place, especially up in the Highlands, where it's not really experienced a whole lot of migration. I mean, except for historical events I won't go into, but it wasn't like a mass migration and immigration from other cultures that came in. It stayed fairly insular, and that protected certain beliefs, I guess, which is sort of what you were saying.
No, but it's, I mean, it is that because when there isn't a whole lot of change, when there isn't a whole lot of removal, when there isn't a whole lot of upheaval, or like, even if generations change and stories don't necessarily get told the same way, right? Like, I mean, anybody who's played a game of telephone, right, from start to finish, the story can change a bit, right? But it's still going to have core elements. It's still going to have these tenets, right? To make you go, okay, well, how are we going to be able to? I mean, there's a reason why urban legends or ghost stories stay ghost stories. They're rooted in a type of truth or reality, whereas it's harder to have those things when there isn't a root place for them to cultivate and to be passed on.
And of course, particularly in America and probably England too, speaking of that, if you do immigrate there from somewhere else, there's a lot of pressure to assimilate.
And I know that's something we talked about a couple months ago when we had our loot discussion. I think that's another that was another book that really drove this kind of ideology in, and where I think this also kind of plays up. And we're going to talk back on this. This is going to be a theme that we will be bringing back up throughout the discussion. But this gets dangerous on so many fronts, because what makes one idea or one way of thinking better than another? And granted, that is a rhetorical question. That's a rhetorical is there a thought that's better than another? I think that's one of the big questions that Koji Suzuki really forces the reader to ask and to confront, is whose thoughts really are better? Like, who is out here making the quote unquote right decisions, and what means that that decision is the right decision for everyone? And because don't all decisions essentially have effects that are good and bad? And I think where we can see this particular Eastern versus Western ideology play out is when the American soldiers after World War II drop the statue of, oh my god,
No Gyoji.
Yes, no Gyoji.
No Gyoji.
In the lake. They get rid of the, like, because what do you do when you try to conquer and assimilate a land? You get rid of the idols, you get rid of the stories, you take away the deities. And what
try to eradicate what made that place itself
right,
so that it is yours now.
right. And who went to go fishing for the statue? Shizuko.
Zuko.
And when she goes and she goes and fishes and dives for the statue, that's inherently when she gets her power. That's when she oh my god, that's beautiful. Oh god, that's amazing. Okay. She goes, she digs for the stories of her people. She goes, she reaches in, she's guided, she lifts them up, and inherently gets these powers as a result.
And we did some research on Eno Gyuji, who is a real figure. He's considered the I don't remember the name.
I had all of
The
those.
father of a certain way of thinking that incorporates Shinugui. Shinugui.
It is Shugendo.
Shugendo. My apologies. He's considered the father of that, wherein which one of the ultimate goals of pursuing that is to gain supernatural power.
Yes. And then, hold on. It looks like Ayana has she made a comment. Let's see. Asa's daughter being scared of the mask and him just casually being like, were you teaching her about demons? Was a big like, oh, right, not American. Yeah, there were a couple.
Sure.
And part of why I waited to talk about this one was because of this slide too. There was another moment that kind of like, oh, right, was the way he treats. Like, there were a couple moments where I was like, maybe this guy isn't maybe he's not the kind of guy he's like portraying. He thinks he is to the reader. Like, I had this whole thing where I was like, is our narrator unreliable? I had to preface in the beginning of our chat, I had to be like, I am so sorry to the Discord. I may have had to eat a little crow on some of my comments. I did not expect to eat. My apologies. But oh god, yeah, really conflicting views on the two main characters. Yes. But when it came to Asakawa, Shizu had some of these comments that, and I had highlighted them like right off. I was like, this feels wrong. And it was one of the first things that kind of, for me, it was like, oh, right. Like the things I think that pulled me out most and was like, not American, were Asakawa's relationships and the ways they were navigated. Oh my gosh, my brain is having to do so many brain things right now. I'm having to stop talking for a second. Hold on.
That's okay. I can fill in.
No, I had to stop. I had to stop myself. Yeah, no, I had to stop myself because I was like, oh, things are clicking. I'm just really impressed with Koji Suzuki. Okay, and if you had asked me that before 4:30 a.m. this morning, I would have told you this book can go kick rocks. Okay, so okay, sorry about that, guys. So all of these relationships and the way they were like playing out and a lot of these roles, I was like, this is so weird. Because there were these moments where she was like, if this is the way that you're talking, like, if this is how you're helping out, I sure would love if he stayed. That's amazing. Like, yeah, please help more. Like, please. But we have this character who's talking about how he's such like he loves his wife so much and he's doing all this stuff. And I was like, that's so weird because that's not at all the kind of guy you're telling us you are, hearing your wife say these things. And on top of that, there was also there was that, and then there was the oh my god, there was one more thing.
Quiet comment.
Oh, the quiet comment was, yeah, with that definitely about the slides. But there was another comment that got made, and I was like, oof. But it was in how I had to correct myself in thinking about how roles are portrayed. Like, I'm so used to like hyper masculinity here in the States. Like, I'm so used to these like egregious displays of manliness, right? Like these hyper masculine
Machismo.
things. Hmm?
Like machismo type behavior and acts.
Well, it's almost like there's machismo, right? But then there's another like adjacent side of it where it's almost like these it almost feels so like when I think machismo, I'm like, okay, that's somebody who like they're okay, hold on. Let me back up. Because I'm like picturing people and I'm like, people can't see images in my head. Let me just get a VHS tape. There is a difference between a man and a farce. Right? And there is like a man and a man's man. Like the idea of these concepts of what does society think a man should be. And I think it's interesting that there are some pillars, no matter what the culture is, that stay the same, right? Like needs to be a provider, needs to be like there's a lot of these like needs to be a provider, needs to be kind of like resilient, needs to be able to do needs to problem solve, all of these different things, right? But then there's like the comical archetype where it's almost like you're like Sunday football man, like over here in the States. You're like Sunday football man who goes to Trump rally.
You drink beer.
Right, like you're real
so
man.
Not really, you probably drink Bud Light, and that's not beer.
Right. Like he definitely mansplains. He sits with his legs open on the subway.
Yeah.
Like you think of it, and that's the guy. Okay, That's the dude. And I think this is really important because we will be talking about archetypes of men. Like, what do you think a man is? Later. It's just really interesting to me because the fact that the author himself is like the coolest dude who just like, I don't know. Yeah, I live in Japan sometimes. I also kind of live in the States. I live between both worlds. I like to ride my motorcycle across country. And yeah, I'm a great family man. I love to hang out with my kids. I was actually a professional house dad. Like, it's cool. I like to teach classes about parent rearing. It's dope. Like, he's just the coolest dude. And then he writes this book about like social commentary. And I'm just like, my good sir, I want to have a chat. Can we talk? And I'm having a moment because I'm realizing why so much of this I was like, oh, as I'm having to think through things. And sorry, guys, my brain is having to take pictures and find words. Welcome to ADHD life. I apologize. But yeah, I just think it's really interesting and I'm not saying that we should like bring authors into this, but I think the fact that he specifically chose to mention some of these things in his author bio.
I'm curious when that bio was written versus when the book was published. Because the book was originally published in the 90s.
Right.
Whereas this reissue is much more recent.
That's fair. And
maybe, yeah, originally published in Japan as Ringu in 1991. And then the American editions were published in 2004, 2007, and then 2016, which is probably the copy we all read. I'm like, I wonder if I just wonder if that was how he always felt, or if it was something that evolved over the almost 3 decades since he originally wrote and published.
If he Anne Riced it.
I'd be right? I'm very curious. I would love to know more about him, but there's just not a ton of information. Like, he doesn't really do many interviews or anything like that. And I'm like, oh, but I want to know. I want to talk to you. I want to hear you talk. Please talk to me.
I need to go back and read okay, hold on. Let me read it to you. I feel like this is important. And then we will and then we will talk about the quiet ones and Shizuku. Yes. Because I realize I may have diverged off the path and flipped the slide a bit too early. Koji Suzuki is based in Tokyo, but spends most of his time traveling. An avid motorcyclist, an accomplished yachtsman, and a respected authority on child rearing, Suzuki is at the vanguard of modern horror fiction writers. He majored in French. After graduating, he held numerous odd jobs, including a stint as a cram school teacher, also a self-described jock. He holds a first-class yachting license and crossed the U.S. from Key West to Los Angeles on his motorcycle. The father of 2 daughters, Suzuki is a respected authority on child rearing and has written numerous works on the subject. He acquired his expertise when he was a struggling writer and household husband. Suzuki has also translated a children's book into Japanese, The Little Sod Diaries by the crime novelist Simon Brett. In 1990, Suzuki's first full-length work, Paradise, won the Japanese Fantasy Novel Award and launched his career as a fiction writer. Ring, written with a baby on his lap, catapulted him to fame, and the multi-million-selling sequels Spiral and Loop cemented his reputation as a world-class talent. Often called the Stephen King of Japan, Suzuki has played a crucial role in establishing mainstream credentials for horror novels in his country. He is based in Tokyo, but loves to travel, often in the United States. Ta-da! Now you have read.
Yeah, you don't need to read. Yeah, I'm guessing his attitude didn't change a ton if, like, he wrote Ring with a baby on his lap. That was when he was house husbanding.
Yeah.
So I imagine. That's pretty cool. He sounds like a cool dude. Like,
I know!
I want to talk to you.
Also, it must be my high school's down the street's homecoming week. Because I swear I can hear them, like, doing a drum line down my street.
That sounds noisy.
I don't know if you guys can hear drums right now.
I cannot. But that is the beauty of a condenser mic.
Oh, that's true. That's true. That's true. There are very loud drums right now.
Yes. So the quiet ones.
Yes.
We named this Sloyd because, I mean, we find it in the book. Like, one of Asakawa's shining moments is when he wishes his wife would be like her name, which means quiet. What a gem. Beautiful. But I realized when I was writing stuff down, I was like, Shizuko. Hey, they're like the same, but with extra letters. And Kaylee was like, look that name up right now.
And that's my favorite thing to do in books is I'm like, oh no, what the fuck does these names mean? Especially if I'm reading a book in a different language. Or like if a character has like a fancy name. I'm like, how much you want to bet that name's not fancy? It's a gotcha, bitch. I'm like, So I'll look shit up. I get so mad.
Gonna be important later.
And that's a surprise tool we're gonna use later. I'm like,
yeah, Shizu means quiet, and Shizuko means quiet girl. So that's what the mothers in the book were named. Quiet.
Hey, can you just shut up? That's what that means. Thanks. If society didn't, if nothing was screaming that at them. Love that.
Gotta love how I guess that's a universal thing. How people view women a lot.
Women. Too noisy.
Yep.
I need to know shirt. Women. Too noisy.
Too noisy.
No.
1 star. Too noisy.
That was a really good time for me to see Claudia's comment. Can't hear them. I know that's in reference to the drums, but
perfect.
I see the timestamp that was.
Hannah said quiet or silenced. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not quiet, you're gonna be silenced.
Oh
no. Or we'll make it be quiet.
Excellent.
Which is something we teach our, pretty common philosophy in the Western world is children should be seen and not heard. And it's usually more aimed at little girls.
I never heard that said to my brother. How many times did I hear that said to me? But to be fair, I never knew how to keep my mouth shut. Nobody liked it in my house. There was good reason, though. Facts. Yeah. All
I
right.
also gotta say, I love how much Shizu was just kind of like a ride or die. She's like, all right, I'm gonna go to my parents. This is weird. You're gonna tell me about this later. Like,
You
I watched
know,
that stupid video.
are
Why?
there
Is
any
something bad gonna happen? I just
are there any
was
moms
distracted.
in the audience? I got a question here. Are there any moms in the audience? Anybody in the audience that
You're a
like
mom.
well, yeah, well, I'm gonna ask a mom-centric question, like a baby, like husband works all day and you're having to take care of a freaking baby question. I'm a mom. Thank you. Okay. Do you remember like the early days of the baby and you were just like counting down, like you love your kid. You're a great mom. But just like work, you could be the best person at your job and love what you do. You're still going to need a freaking break. Okay. And you know what? By the time he came running around to be like, hey, girl, you know, if I had watched a spooky ass videotape that landed me at a getaway stay, accompanied at my parents' house with help, while my husband was just off figuring shit out, I'd be like,
With his weird friend?
I'd be like, I could either confront what's going on or I can have a pseudo vacation right now. Was not impressed with how Asa was just like, oh, she's asleep, gonna go do my own thing after being out all day. Bro, I was like, the balls this dude has right now. Or like he gets home and he's like, if I'm not home at 9 o'clock and in that bed, she's a bed hog. And there's no reason I should even go to bed. I gotta fight her for the covers. I'm like, maybe you should just get your ass in bed. Like, dang. Keep your weird friend. I'll take the help. Exactly. Exactly. Like,
And
don't
like
get
he
me wrong.
sounded kind of bitter that, oh, she used to just go and help the baby fall asleep and then come back down, and now she just falls asleep with the baby and that's it. Like, oh,
Yeah,
I'm
because
sorry. After a hard day of rearing your child, you're upset that she went to bed in the evening and didn't attend to your every need, I
I'm so
guess.
sorry.
What do you
You're sorry that she passed out. You're upset that she just crashed, my dude. Like, I'm so sorry. Are you sad that she eliminated the possibility of a round two electric boogaloo? Because, like, you're offering so much help right now? No, thanks. That sounds like a nightmare. I'm okay. I will sleep with the baby. The baby won't get me pregnant.
I'm not doing this again.
No, not nah. Nah, I'm good. You know what? Hanging out with your weird bestie right now ain't gonna get me pregnant either. That sounds great.
And also just one of the things that bugged me so much was when they were on the train and he was so embarrassed that Yoko was crying. And it's like,
Yes.
you have the luxury of being embarrassed in this situation. Like,
Uh,
you're just like, I'm not going to deal with this. It's her job. I'm just going to be mortified this is happening. Oh, okay.
I will say that is a very it's a very interesting experience though, because if it's your kid crying in a public space, you just feel like anxiety because you just feel like people think you just don't know how to parent and you're just like, I don't know how to make the thing that's making noise stop making noise. Yeah, like you're like, I could be doing everything and being the best mom in the world, but it's the judgment from other, and that's the thing I think we kind of, I mean, some people, I feel like I don't give enough credit to Asakawa about is that is a man who deeply freaking cares what other people thinks of him. Like he is so concerned all the, oh my god, it's like it's the point of the freaking book. Oh, I'm so mad right now. It's like it's smacking me in the face as I'm talking. He is so concerned with what society thinks of him.
Yeah.
And it is so jarring. It is
But
so jarring.
interestingly, he's also very self-centered and self-serving. Like how he doesn't want to do the piece on the mogul because he thinks it's beneath him or he doesn't think it's worthy of his talent. It's like,
Or he's so
okay,
lost he has to do a survey of how many men in their 30s to figure out if he is on par with where he should be.
right?
Like,
Wow, that's a
what?
long and extensive and work intensive way to
Say you're
show that
like,
you feel inadequate. Like,
yeah. But I think that's a big, like, I mean, I think that's another big point of the book, right? And I think that's something that that's another big theme that this novel really talks about is ways in which society points the finger.
yeah.
Like the ways in which society makes us feel. Like how we are supposed to move through society as individuals. I think that is so important. And we see that in all of the different characters. We see it as Asakawa. We see it in Shizu and Shizuku. We like the two different way mothers are supposed to be. We see it in the all. And I'm not going to lie, this actually has me really upset about the movies and the fact that the movies have been completely. Oh God, I'm so mad. The movies have completely like changed because I haven't seen Ringo, so I can't really talk about it.
Right.
But I do know that in Ringu, though it is replaced with a woman as well. And it's so, I think to strip the male character from the front view defeats a lot of the intention.
Yeah, it sort of immediately eliminates a lot of elements from the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very interesting that The Ring, the American version, is based on Ringu. So in addition to it being a Western adaptation of an Eastern-based story, it's also like twice removed from the source material.
It is. It's like, yeah, it feels it feels like it's country cousin.
Right? And it is just like a bare bones kind of spooky story. There's not much else to it.
I mean, I
It's
think
bad.
the
It's
only
fun to
thing that was
watch.
kept was the VHS bit.
Right? I actually had a couple of, that's what my little top tabs were
Nice.
similarities to the movie, and probably only like 2 or 3 of them were like major elements that they kept. The main character was a reporter, and that's how the kind of thing gets started.
Mm-hmm.
There was a videotape, and there was a poor girl that got thrown in a well. So, sort of the extent of the main similarities.
Yeah, that's kind of where that starts and stops, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I really want to watch it too, Claudia. It's not streaming anywhere at the moment. I'm hoping maybe that changes in October. Because I would very much like to see it. And also there are Japanese adaptations of the sequels too.
Ooh.
Yeah.
From what I've learned about Japanese culture, they're all concerned with what society thinks. Yeah,
True.
I'm really learning that. That's something my sister. I'm so sad that Mackenzie is not here. Um, I'm so sad that Mackenzie's not here for this discussion because Kenzie actually got to live for a couple years in um, North Japan, and so she got to kind of like experience and have some frame of references that I'm really sad we're getting to miss out on.
No.
I'm so sad.
I really wanted to be all like, anytime there was like a cultural thing, like, is that true? Is that even though it's like 30 years removed?
They'd like drop a
Really?
name,
But
they'd like
still.
drop a street name, and I'd be like, Kenzie, do you have a photo? And I'd be like, I know
She
she's
did
messaging
say
me,
that
be like,
though.
you can just look at Google Maps. Like,
I remember like right at the beginning, I think it was in our first sprint, and she was
she was
mentioning like
I actually saw that place. And I was just like,
I know exactly where they are based on where they described Tokyo Tower and other things. I'm like, that's really cool.
that's so cool.
Like how I feel when I read books set in the UK. I'm like, I know exactly where this is.
Yeah, that's how I feel anytime I read like one of like Rachel Harrison's books and it's like truth centered. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, let's go.
I was learning about New Jersey cuisine. That
So
detects
proud.
Kaylee. Like, I know what disco fries are now.
So good. So proud. Okay, so next slide. A white man? No.
No.
Of course it's colonialism. We can actually skip this because I did get to talk about this when I brought up the statue.
We just
'Cause
really like the slide too.
we just anytime we get to mention Schmidt from New Girl, we're
Right.
gonna mention Schmidt from New Girl. It's like anytime we're able to mention Taylor Swift lyrics, we're gonna mention Taylor Swift lyrics. It's just gonna happen.
It's true.
Guys, they have all of them on Tubi. I even see Spiral in the other one. Oh my God, Laura, we're gonna have a movie day.
Yes. Thank you for checking on that.
Laura, you should come over this week and help me peel pins for a special project. So I could heat press a bunch of pins, and then we could watch the Koji movies.
Yeah.
It'll be great.
That'd be fun.
Ask me no questions. I'll tell you no lies. So I think this is I think the play on media versus the media in the novel was very interesting.
Yeah.
Because there's two different types of content going on in the book, right? We have the fact that Asakawa's a reporter. He works for the media station. He works, we have the news reporters. We have all of that going on. Like we have Shizuko and her publicity foray that goes south. We have all of that, right? We have that side of things.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, we have the physical media. We have the actual videotapes. We have the oh, that's an interesting way to think about it too. You have your primary sources versus your secondary sources.
Ooh, yeah.
That's interesting to think about it too that way, because you can look at the VHS tape either way.
Yeah.
Because the primary source is the imprinted one. The secondary source is the copies.
Or even like the primary source is Sadako.
Yeah, well, or Asakawa
memory.
Or Asakawa, when he decides to report.
Yeah. Ooh. Nah, I just read the comment that said ooh as well.
Yeah, like thinking about it that way. You can look at it. That's such a like English nerd answer too. Primary sources versus secondary sources. Because the whole entire and that's why I think it's important that the novel is centered around a reporter. Because could the book have worked if it was anybody else? Yes. Do I think it would have worked as well? No. And the reason I say that is because a reporter's core obligation at the end of the day is to the truth, is to the story. Whatever ideally, right? Ideally is the story and what it should be. And what's very interesting about it is investigative journalism has the same kind of you hear a lot of people talk about investigative journalism the same way people talk about like the same way you read people in the book speak about the psychic phenomenons, gut instinct, hunches, a lot of things like that. You have to, you just have to like go with it. Intuition, you have to like some people just have it.
Their spidey sense.
Yeah, well, and I think having the different being shown 3 different people who work, well, I guess 4, because if we also go off of the guy who lives on the island, the 4 different people in the media and the different ways they work with it. Yeah, the media is different than media. Okay, remember that. If we go with the 4 different people, each of them, though their intentions may be different, they are all still dedicated to the truth. And why I titled
in theory.
Well, and why I titled this, Ask Me No Questions, I'll Tell You No Lies, is because don't ask questions you don't want answers to.
Yeah.
And I think that's important with going with actual physical media. Why I don't think it was a prank that the kids recorded over the instruction bit.
Yeah.
Because that's a bit of a plot hole. I don't want to say a plot hole because I think towards the end things become not plot holey. But I know to the characters individually, right, it feels like plot holes. The reader is left to interpret things.
Yeah, it's left a bit ambiguous.
Right. The reader gets left enough information to where we are able to be like, here is a choice.
Because as well, like, going against the theory that Asakawa and Ryoji have, that they did it as a prank. Well, we get the Tomoko's POV first, and
It wasn't.
it doesn't. She never. I don't know if it was a prank. I feel like
They would have been talking
there
about
would have
it.
been some indication that she was like, "Oh, they shouldn't have done that, or they should have tried to do what they were told," kind of thing. But she was just like, "Oh God, was it real?" Or like, "Oh no, it is actually coming for me."
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too, right? Like, I mean, that is a very good point because there's a lot of places I revisited and I'm kind of giggling because
Ayana has some good points too in the chat, like that Asa being a reporter meant he had access to some really good resources that most people
yeah,
probably wouldn't. And what he lacks as a partner, parent, he makes up for in journalism. Like, yeah,
yes,
he's not very driven to be a more helpful partner, but he's very driven to pursue this story that he's even been told not to pursue. He's like, yes, no, my journalistic instinct is telling me to do this. Really?
um ooh, that's that's kind of interesting actually. On page 6, what if it's she didn't want to think the rest? If she went on like that, she'd remember, and she didn't think she could stand the terror. It had happened a week ago, so long ago she'd forgotten. Shuichi's fault. He shouldn't have said that. Later, none of them could stop. Oh, interesting. Later, comma, none of them could stop. But then they'd come back to the city, and those scenes, those vivid images, hadn't seemed quite as believable. The whole thing had just been someone's idea of a joke. Tomoko tried to think about something more cheerful, anything besides that. But if that had been real, after all, the phone did ring, didn't it? Interesting. Um, the phrasing in it is what has me.
Yeah, it definitely is very ambiguous. You could read it one way or another.
Yeah. That is very, very interesting. And it's even more interesting that she's the only person we get a POV from.
Yeah. We just hear about, I mean, was it Shuichi that was on the motorcycle?
I'm not sure.
But we get the
Yes, I think
perspective
so.
of sort of the person who finds him, who is right there. We're
Yeah.
still in that scene. But then for Haruko and Takahiro, we just hear about it from Yoshino. Like it's like primary and secondary sources again.
Yeah. See. It's that like it's that ripple effect.
It's a ring.
It's a spiral.
A loop.
Oh my gosh. It's almost like there's a motif going on.
It's
I
all
also
an
think
onion.
I also think it's really interesting too on page 4. She has a moment where she goes, even then, what an unfulfilling summer vacation it had been. The foul weather had kept her from having any real fun, while the oppressive humidity had kept her from getting any work done. Man, it was my last summer in high school. I wanted to go out with a bang, and now it's all over. I like that she chose was and not is. Like, homegirl knew.
Yeah.
Homegirl knew.
And they talk about it too later in the book. It's on, I had it pulled up actually, on page 164. And they're talking about um Asakawa and Ryuji are talking about the teenagers, the kids. He's like, it's possible to disbelieve it, but weren't they at least bothered, those four? What would you do? This is, I would have expected them, at least one of them, to break rank. I mean, even if he or she insisted on putting on a brave face in front of the others, he or she could always perform the charm in secret after getting back to Tokyo. I was
Oh, yeah.
thinking, the thought I had was like, this is a relatable thing, I think, because it's like those chain emails. If anyone
Yeah,
was
because I mean,
around
like
for the AOL age, like
oh
you
god,
got
yeah.
these awful chain emails, but there was a part of you that was like,
Oh, I
what if
always
I don't
forwarded them.
forward this?
I
What if
always
something
I was
happens?
I'm always that person who's like, "I'm not superstitious. I'm a little stitious, though. I'm a little stitious."
Right. Or
So
even blasphemy, I feel like I'm not religious, but if there's like a violent display of blasphemy, like it makes me a little uncomfortable. Like
yeah.
maybe it's the disregarding of other people's beliefs about it, but there is something that is just like, what the
Right. Like, there's a difference between a chainmail that has, like, 5 CCs and, like, you know, like, 5 forwards, and a chainmail that has, like, 25 forwards. Like, I'm gonna forward that. That's some you don't fuck around shit, you know what I mean? That's been through MySpace and back. Like, this has been
wolf?
revived. No.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, that's a good point, Claudia, that they mention at the end that even if one was to want to break rank, as they say earlier, they couldn't get back to make a copy or undo what they did or anything like that.
Oh, that is true. That is true because they borrowed somebody else's card.
Yeah. And also, like, they're teenagers. They probably can't take off in the middle of the week by themselves to do something like that. I guess they could. I got away with my fair share of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
Yes.
I feel like I forgot so much at the beginning because of the wild ride Asakawa takes us on and figuring everything out. Ugh, yes.
Right.
Yeah, like if all they had to do and knew, not fully convinced they knew the charm. Yeah, same. Was make copies. Why wouldn't they bring it home?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially since going back to what we talked about, it's established that even younger people are more likely to take something like that seriously in Japanese culture than, say, in American culture.
Right. Well, yeah, I still think there's something in that that's not adding up. Like for me personally, right?
Yeah.
Like for me,
They can't
I would talk it out. Like what I would have talked it out with my friends and I'd be like, well, what happens if we all watch it together? Like if this is meant for one person to watch at one time, what happens if we've all watched it together? Does my view cancel out your view? Like what do we all just die together? And then it's like, okay, well then how do we keep everybody else from dying? What do we need to do? Like if it really is a killer VHS tape, how do we keep it from killing other people? Right? Like how do we ensure that this doesn't kill other people? And
Yeah. Almost it's
having
too late for us. We can't do anything. We watched it, but we can stop other people from passing it on.
well, and what I'm wondering is I'm wondering if they were gonna destroy it. And we've seen that Sadak God. Um like I need the name cheat sheet. Um
Yes, everyone, I made as a name cheat sheet. Sadako?
Yeah, Sadako. Obviously has power to override bodies. So what I'm wondering is if whoever the last person was there, like if they all agreed to not do something, right? There's
Mhm.
nobody else there to make watch the tape. So instead of getting rid of it, right? Like instead of taking it with them, getting rid of it, being like, oh, well, we just won't show it. They clear it. Like she like
Oh, they tried to clear the whole thing,
yeah. Like
and
what if they
she
try to
was like,
clear it?
no.
Right. And so only like a little bit like the portion or like they tried to clear the end being like, well, if nobody knows that you can just do this, maybe it'll just die, right? Like
Yeah.
but that's the thing,
Almost like
like
quarantining it.
right. And that's the thing, quarantines they don't work quite like that. That's not quite how a quarantine works. You have to like entirely remove and isolate. You can't just splice.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you splice something, you're actually making more. You're just making a like split in the loop, right? And that's what the kids did. That's my theory on it, but that's my theory on it. Also, I think the use of physical media as a physical demonstration of how viruses work, effing brilliant. That's just my 2 cents.
Really cool.
I was like, I have never understood science more in my life.
Right? Like suddenly my degree is in biology and not in literature.
Every single biology teacher I had is very disappointed in me all of a sudden. I just felt them collectively grown. But that's okay. They're like, it's wrong. I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah, I have a bit on page 226 when they're like, wow, Sadako had been invaded by the smallpox virus, but she died immediately afterwards. If its host perishes, a virus can't go on living. And I was like, or it compounds with psychic abilities and rage and becomes a deadly video virus. And goes,
becomes a killer VHS tape.
viral.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
I will
love
not.
you. I love you so much. My life, ladies and gentlemen. Apparently not by digging up the body and solving a murder. I love them.
Ew.
Let's see.
Yeah,
I
I
really
loved
liked
her
how the
too.
author
Oh,
explained the
man.
tape. It wasn't just some random scenes. It was her life flashing before her eyes. The explanation of how the tape works. Like, hell yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
The
freaking
significant moments
brilliant.
of her life, like, oh.
I also really kind of like, God, Laura and I were like, I cannot believe. We're going to be straight up with you. Before chapter like 10, I think Laura and I were both like, how is there a prequel and like 3 more books?
Yeah, like, this seems pretty
How?
drawn. What?
And
Oh, that's how.
we finished the book and we were first before chapter 10, I think we were both like, this is like a 3-star book. How are people wanting more of this? And then we finished the book and we were like, so also, the more you think about this, do you have it figured out? But also, are you realizing that you kind of have some more questions? And are you realizing where they are and where they could go and how you suddenly could be reading like maybe 3 more books?
Yeah, exactly, Claudia. I was like, I never would have thought I wanted to read the rest, but now I kind of want to read the other ones.
And now here we are.
Huh.
Yeah.
And it does tie in with the media too, is that idea of thought. Where did you go? Come back. I don't remember the middle part of my thought, but I remember the end part. I was going to end by bringing up like the, I guess, authenticity with the
Yeah.
media. And we had talked about this earlier, but regarding the editor, his Asakawa's boss, Oguri. Let me check my sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, Oguri, and how he's like the representative of the media, capital T, capital M, and he wants he's and doesn't want to print anything about the supernatural. No, we print the truth, even though the supernatural element was the
Is
truth.
the truth. Yep.
Like regarding Shizuko and the dad Iwata, like what was published was gossip. It wasn't really the truth of the matter. But that's what was official.
Oh, Akuma?
Yeah. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was looking
You're
at
good.
the wrong part of my cheat sheet.
You're good. I was so conflicted about Asakawa as a character that I wasn't sure if I wanted to, but it was such a good read. Yeah, dude.
Fortunately, from what I understand, Asakawa is like, we're done with him.
Yeah,
The
Asakawa's
story
right.
moves on.
Asakawa. That's it. That's how you pronounce that. Asakawa.
Even like, I wanted to believe he had learned compassion and understanding.
I feel like I
think
should have
he
moved.
sort
I
of,
feel like I should have moved
yeah,
a slide up here.
probably. There were some moments where, like, yes, it seems like he has, permanently turned that leaf that Shizu hoped he would. But then there was a bit where was it? It was right near the end. Do
Me?
that.
Not do the thing? No. I'm going
Right.
to tell the
There
world
it is.
about all of this. Nope, just kidding. No, I'm not. Why would I
It
ever do a
was
thing like
right at
that?
the end, 279, when he's telling Shizu he's on the way so that they can make the tape. And he's like, don't go anywhere. He didn't want to know what to say, so he shut up, right? Right. It's not dangerous. And his thought is, dangerous? You and your daughter are going to be dead in 5 hours. And I thought it was so interesting. He said, your
Daughter.
not
Yeah.
our daughter, your daughter. And it's like that little snail, Asakawa, or I like snails, slug. hadn't completely
You
gone.
know what it makes me think
He hadn't
about,
turned
though?
his leaf all the way over.
But
What?
I see what you're saying, but it also kind of makes me think about it like this, though. Um, think about what he would like throughout the entire novel. There's nothing he would, well, that's a lie. There's almost nothing he would have done um, to get back to him and to get back to his wife and daughter.
Yeah.
Right? Like there was almost nothing he would have done. He wouldn't have done. There was like almost nothing he wouldn't have done, right? And sorry, my eye is itching. And I don't necessarily see it as like that's your kid. I see it more of like, wait. I literally just killed a man. My best friend. I literally just killed my best friend. You can't even think about protecting your kid the same way because like to him, he doesn't have to think about us. He has to think about protecting Shizu and Yoko, right?
Mhm.
Like, and Yoko only has to think about protecting, and Shizu only has to think about protecting Yoko, right? So I don't think it was like necessarily a derogatory dig. I think it was just like, where are your priorities, lady?
Maybe.
But
She
also,
didn't know.
see, because
didn't
for
really
me,
know.
I think it was more like your daughter. And I'd be like, yeah, but that's her parents. Like, you literally are like, is it harmless? Mm-hmm.
Be a better mother, but also kill yours.
Yes. That's literally where I was going. I was like, dude, I'm sorry. What?
Is
She's
it
just like,
dangerous?
did you just ask me to kill my mom? And this is why, hold on, I'm gonna like,
I really would wish we'd have gotten to hear that conversation.
I just really quick. Okay. Sorry. I had to scroll back. I had to scroll down real quick. This is why I think it's really important we bring this up real quick before I scroll back.
Yeah.
Asakawa seems caught a lot in this particular situation. In the chat, did anybody ever have to do like in like a philosophy class or anything, or in like a group project, or a team building exercise? Did anybody ever have to do the trolley problem?
Has anyone
Kill my
played
in-laws to
Trial
save my
by
wife?
Trolley?
Done.
Done.
Love it. Excellent. That's, you know what? Sometimes it's like that. Unless you're my in-laws watching this. And then I love you. I love you very much. I love you. See, even Claudia agrees. Yep. Absolutely his fault. He put his family in that kind of even potential danger. Yeah, exactly. If he had hidden the tape or not left it at home, it's his fault they watched it.
And I guess it's
Yeah.
indicative of how he underestimated Shizu's curiosity. Like, he just assumed that she wouldn't go anywhere near it because she wouldn't want to know. She wouldn't be curious. But
What are
wouldn't
you
you be
and your
curious?
what are you and that boy watching? What in the Pink Pony Club is going on that couch? So yes,
Yeah, the whole thing does
I
seem
had to
like
show
a
the
trolley
slide because we were talking about it a lot already.
It's true.
And Ayana, you hit the nail on the head perfectly. Kill my in-laws to save my wife. The trolley problem. Welcome. And this is something that comes up a lot, actually, thematically in the book, is the trolley problem. At what point is it we see this trolley problem pop up throughout. And I think anytime the virus or a virus situation we are dropped into, I think this ideology starts popping up and we start questioning some things. And it makes you ask yourself, well, if I was in that situation, what would I do? If I was placed here, how would can I really be placing this much judgment on these characters? Because how can I say what I would do if I was caught in those kinds of situations? What would I, you know, and I think it's important that we've been talking about these kids and how these kids have been experiencing these situations, right? Like, I think there's a point where Asakawa talks about being a kid and digging a tunnel with his friends, and then the lady coming out and being like, if you die in there, it'll be bad for the neighborhood. Like,
right?
not,
It's that
hey,
thinking about society, what they think again.
it is. It's not
This is
like,
gonna bring
hey,
down my house value. How dare you?
right. But it's not even like, but even that I think is a very Japanese cultural mindset, because I mean, think about it. It's like they even teach their kids, like in school and everything, how to take care of the community, how to clean up, like how like to engage with the community. They put such an emphasis on um like like societal engagement.
Yeah.
I mean, even like think about it.
Not in my HOA vibes.
Not but I mean, in a way, yes. In a way, yes. And like here, of course we would think about it because like we would think about it that way because it's very commodified, right? Like it's a very commodified approach to look at things. But I mean, to think about it there, I mean, of course it's not like if a bunch of boys were to crawl into a hole and die in a neighborhood, of course that would be bad for the neighborhood. Like it's not just selfish. It's not just like, first of all, that is selfish on an individual because you didn't think about the people around you. You didn't think about what would happen to the people you are playing with. You didn't think about the consequences of your actions. Like you didn't think about the community. You just thought here,
Yeah, which is
right?
kind of antithetical to Japanese culture, which isn't that individualistic from what I understand. Like
Right,
it's
like, they even have bells that go off throughout the day to where, like, you all as a community stop, you all do calisthenics. Like, I wish Kenzie was here because she would talk so well about it. Um, but it's like, here you can't even go to the bathroom in a public space because people disrespect public spaces so bad here because they're like, "Whatever, I can do whatever I want." Whereas
yeah.
over there, they raise the like they raise the community to be like, you know what, this isn't just my space, this is our space. We need to have an obligation to each other. And I think that's the big difference in the Eastern and Western mindset, is the obligation of which we have to each other. She wasn't being like, not in my HOA. She was being like, hey, it is our obligation to each other for this not to happen. You need to keep your friends safe. We need to keep this neighborhood safe. This should not be happening. It is not about you. It is not about your play. It is about us. Right? And it puts the emphasis not on the individual. It puts the emphasis like here. And I think Asakawa gets upset about that a lot, because Asakawa does not know who he is. Asakawa does not have a defined sense of self. And so he gets lost in society a lot. He gets lost in the community. He gets lost in the stories around him because he does not know his own. And so I think it's really interesting that in going to find somebody else's story, like to go and find and research out about somebody else's story, he finds out exactly what kind of man he is on the trolley line. I think is really interesting. She said, it'd be pretty disgusting if you got buried alive in there. It would be!
But it's also pretty funny to read it as the not my HOA vibes.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is funny to read it as not my HOA vibes.
Disgusting little cretins. Get out of there.
It is. It is. It'd be pretty disgusting if you got buried alive in there. But like that, but that's and I think that we'll get into that in a minute. The whole read-alikes, but I read Tombs, Junji Ito's Tombs, while I was reading Ring, and now that I've finished reading Ring, I definitely feel like it was like the collection I feel was a very good. I feel like it was a very good on brand read along for this. If you wanted something kind of quick and spooky to go with it. But let me scroll back here. Okay. So we've kind of gone over this one. The power of stories. So we're going to I feel we kind of talked about this when we discussed, we've been touching on this a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it ties into like what we're saying about the virus and it's a viral story that's getting told again. Like it's Sadako is wanting her story to be known.
Yeah, not just that, but like with the power of like native stories and the power of like lores and tales of our people and land. I mean, these hold a whole lot of significance for a whole lot of people. And the whole reason a lot of this is even capable to exist, the narrative points in the story, is because the oral storytelling component goes like it exists. There's so much. There's a specific point in the story where who is it? There's a specific part where oh my gosh, I'm so upset right now because I just lost my train of thought. I feel like it's Ryuji, and he talks about I'm so mad. I forgot my freaking train of thought.
Ryuji stories. Oh, stories Ryuji tells?
Rephrasing it in a different way doesn't help. I mean, yeah, that probably is it, but I don't remember which story it is.
Okay. Well, I was referring to his stories of him being the grand rapist. Is that gonna get our video flagged to talk about? Should we phrase it a different way? I don't. Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
hold on. We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. Gosh, I wish I could remember what the better stories. Anyways, we've been talking about this a whole lot throughout the discussion. I think it's interesting that the theater troupe is where the theater troupe, which is naturally about stories, that's where Sadako, that's where they end up going to.
yeah, she's drawn to the theater. She was in a theater troupe. Her mother's story was silenced.
Yes,
So
her mother's story was silenced.
Tell other stories.
Yeah, stories play like a very large narrative throughout this whole thing, and I'm so mad because it was a big point I was gonna make, and I beefed it. Anyway, people contain multitudes.
Let's talk about Ryoji and Sadako, finally.
Yeah, we have not talked about this at all.
We've been skating around it.
Waiting. Oh, I've been so excited to talk about this. What if I told you? My theory on this is this book is just a giant allegory for. What if I told you that this book was just a giant allegory for what it was like to be a closeted homosexual during the AIDS crisis in Japan in the late 80s? And then having to come to terms with so much of it. And not just like questions you may have never asked yourself, and are having to confront and ask yourself, but also things like, wow, never thought I'd have to ask that of my friends and family, or wow, the media really can turn on a dime, can't it? There's really no loyalty to anyone or anything here, is there? Ryuji tells a whole lot of things. He talks about a whole lot. I also think it's important that Ryuji, like we acknowledge Ryuji is a philosophy professor. He is somebody who spends a great time contemplating and thinking about the ways in which reason works and why and which things go the way they do, and how people rationalize or why we rationalize or motives and such. I think Ryuji has a certain kind of, as the story goes on, I think Ryuji acknowledges a certain kind of kinship with Sadako. There is when we meet Ryuji and we are enlightened to the events of what goes on when him and Asakawa first meet in high school, and what he confesses to Asakawa that morning when he asks him to call his mom. I think it is very crucial in going back and rereading it. Laura and I spent a lot of time earlier today looking up queer culture in Japan and time frame and throughout history. And it's very interesting, to say the least, some of the things that are reflected throughout the novel that pair with Japan's queer history. I also think it is interesting that the way Ryuji describes the encounter, how at the very end of the novel, the one person Ryuji wants to call is, yes, that's what I wanted to tell. Yes, the stories, even the stories we tell ourselves. Even the stories we tell ourselves. Ayana, you got it. It felt like a very big trying to prove I'm a man kind of thing in the end. When it was first mentioned, I was like, why the is this such a casual sounding thing? Yes, exactly. Exactly. And then for Mai in the very end to confess that he's never even like to Asakawa, Mai to be like, oh, you have the wrong idea. We've never, he's not, it's not like that. And to like, it's also that kind of, there's so many different types of love as well. I think that's something else that doesn't get discussed, like we didn't discuss earlier, Laura, is I think Ryuji is such a beautifully nuanced character that in his like final moments, his his dying wish isn't to call Asakawa and tell him the answer. It's to call the one person who truly knew everything.
Yeah. The
And
person who knew him.
Yeah, and just die accepted, to die as a person who has never been afraid of death and is always throughout the entire novel has been like, I accept it. I am not scared. I am like, I'm okay. Wants to die with the dignity that Sadako never never was given, essentially. Like the dignity that,
Yeah.
and it's not a dignity that other people can give you. And I think that's a big thing, right? Like it's the only kind of dignity you can give yourself. Because I mean, RuPaul says it best. How are you going to love anybody else if you're never going to love yourself? I also think it's very interesting through all this that the way Ryuji talks about his encounters with women Um, there are three big things that kind of gave me a bit of a red flag, and made me go, interesting. His death mask in the end, what his death mask looks like. The fact that Ryuji himself is roped into a virus plot. And the hours of which Ryuji is doing these acts. Also in the first one, where he's coming from. Like in the first act, he's like, I ran, like, because isn't he like running across the football field or something? He like ran across the football field and then into the classroom where he was studying language, because German is just the best way to decompress, as Asakawa would tell you.
Yeah, I think so. Or he'd come in because he was on the track team, right?
Yeah, that doesn't sound like he was banging a lady.
Yeah. And I think reading it this way makes all the other things about Asakawa make sense. Because if you try to take it literally, like, oh, he was just a lonely man who decided to lie to his friend to seem cool about raping women.
Oh, you mean Ryuji?
Yeah, like,
yeah,
that doesn't gel with the entire journey we've gone on him with and heard him. Because initially, when we first met Ryuji, I was like, hey, I like him. This is cool. And then you turn the page and it's like talks about what he had confessed to Asakawa. And I was like, oh.
You're like, all of a
gross.
sudden, disgusting male character. And you're like,
Yeah.
why are we this disgusting archetype? I thought I could like you.
Right. And then as you go on, it's like, oh, I don't want to like him, but I kind of do.
Right.
And then that it makes much more sense to read him in that light. And the lie makes more sense.
Like, why would you go so far?
Yeah.
If, like, why? And that's why I bring up this, like there's machismo, but then there's this, like, egregious caricature of what a man is, right? And it's like
Toxic masculinity.
And beyond.
Yeah.
Like, it's every toxic football man, Budweiser, belly button, worst trait dude you've ever thought about at a Thanksgiving dinner table that is a reason you RSVP no. Like that kind of idea. You know what I mean? Like that kind of, like, NASCAR dude. Like, just this egregious caricature. Does the person really exist? Maybe. But it's an amalgam of all these things that men are like, I don't know if this thing exists, but I know all of these things exist, and I know all of these things are manly. Is this person real? Nope, but all these things are real, and I am a real boy. And you're like, chill out, Pinocchio. We all know what happens to him. Calm down. And for him to be so willing to do anything for Asakawa, no questions asked. Exactly. But do we know for sure he lied? Didn't Asakawa say he wasn't sure if it was a lie? Asakawa didn't have time to figure it out. Asakawa didn't fucking care by that point. I'll be straight up. Asakawa by the end was like, I don't care. Asakawa was like,
he did say he wasn't sure if it was a lie. But yeah, I think didn't care. I think you're right. Like, I think he didn't care at that point whether it was a lie or not. He didn't see the need to.
But I think it was
Interestingly, it's a
Asakawa.
story he's not interested in.
To be fair, I think it was Asakawa putting his own blinders on and covering his own part of the charm of his own story. Because to acknowledge it would mean that he would have to answer questions he didn't want to answer. Right? Like to admit that, he would have to admit that he would have to accept things that he himself might not be ready to confront. It's kind of like in this day and age when you meet people who, like, have you ever seen somebody who, like, have you ever encountered people who, have you ever I don't know if any of you guys have people in the trans community or anything like that, but if you've ever seen someone who's transitioned and then you have somebody who is good-natured and they knew the person beforehand, but they're still like, they don't get it. And so they're not trying to be mean. They just like they just don't understand. They just don't understand. Like they just need it might be a matter of time. It might be a matter of explaining things. It's not malice, it's not hate. It's just they haven't maybe encountered it before. They haven't maybe come in, like it's new information that they haven't come to like they haven't had to encounter or process yet. And they're having to like register. And sometimes people don't know how to register information like that. And it takes time. And I think it could be one of those situations for Asakawa where he's like, and I think that's why on the phone, he just tells Mai, he's like, he was my best friend too. Because how do you, especially when somebody's gone, right? Like when somebody's dead and you can't ask them these questions, how are you able to get answers?
And what's funny is I was looking for something related to this and my book literally fell open at the part I wasn't looking for, but it's freaking perfect. It's 160 and right, they're I guess talking about the video. Nasukawa was saying, I still can't believe it, you know, that someone could really do the horrible things that they did to Sadoko. And Ryuji says, it doesn't matter if you believe it or not now, does it? Without taking his eyes off the map of Washima. Anyway, it's a reality staring you in the face. You know, all we're seeing is one small part of a continuously changing phenomenon.
I love him. It's so good. It's so good. Oh my god. Okay, hold on. Ayana says, the mask of my tough manly friend who wasn't afraid of anything. Yep. Absolutely. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Oh yeah, an allegory must square. Yep, that's where we're going with this.
We didn't talk about Sadoko.
Oh, hold on. Boop. Sorry. I don't know why I was like going to the yokai to talk about Sudoku. Sorry.
We could.
I was like pairing everything together in my brain. Yeah, here, we could talk about why can't I say their name? Sadako. Yeah.
My brain does keep wanting to say Sudoku,
I
like
know.
the game, but I'm trying to be good.
My brain keeps wanting to say like Sodako. I'm like, that's not it. That's not it.
I mean, she was just honestly the perfect vessel for everything we've talked about. And I think Ryuji understood her in a way that Asakawa never did. And the bit I was looking for was where he's talking about
how all
the beauty
things
of
yes, I have it highlighted. It's he talks about how in the beginning all things were originally one. All things were originally like homogeneous and or hermaphroditic or something. And
yeah, and a person with both male and female genitals is the ultimate symbol of power and beauty.
Yes. And
Sadako is constantly, she's only ever described as beautiful.
Only ever described. Only.
Or as weird. Eerie. But
yeah, only as eerie or gorgeous. Like there is no in between. Like they are either unsettling and eerie and creepy. Like they were like, her, got a weird vibe. Or like the most beautiful thing I ever saw. I cannot.
And sometimes both at the same time.
Yeah. And I'm like,
but she was the prettiest girl I've ever seen.
Like even when they find the picture of her, this is what people they're like, yeah, dude, her. I don't know how anybody could be afraid of such a beautiful face. Like, oh my God. Because women can't kill their husbands.
Well, women aren't allowed to be angry, so of course they can't kill their husband.
But I think there is now when I was reading this, I was having a discussion with another member of our crypt, and they brought something up to my attention that I went back and forth on with you and them a lot. And it was about the idea that once we find out that Sadako is intersex, all of a sudden it paints this idea that intersex people are she couldn't have been angry, her name meant quiet girl. Ooh, exactly. It paints intersex people as like these vessels for like rage and hate. And I went back and forth on this so many times in the book. Like I think I might have screenshot you and our other ghoul in the crypt. Like I like might have screenshot you guys like 4 or 5 times while I was reading this. Like, wait, hold on. God, I was like, ah! As I was trying to decide like if I agreed with this or not. Like not that like I like if I agreed with how this book paints this image and or if that was, you know, even true. And I think I'm consistently shocked by just the way Ryuji saves this novel. I do not believe that they are a symbol of hate. Instead, I think the author, I think Koji Suzuki, did something so much more poignant, and so much more impressive. And instead, used the novel as a way to show, and the rage and anger and hate as a way to show how society fails these people, how society can actually cause these people to either fall through the cracks or cause these people to turn into these situations, because no one knew that Sadako was intersex until the moment, right? Nobody knew. Until the two, nobody knew until the two instances of violence. Oh my God, the balloons are so not a time for this right now. Nobody knew until the two instances of violence, right? Which was their agency being taken away. The media and her mother and father being completely shunned and being told they were false, they were liars, they were frauds, and how the media, who had them as superstars and as like these pinnacles, completely failed them, right? So the media, the people, she lost her faith in them. Then you have the theater troupe. The director freaking goes out and tries to rape her. And then you have, once that happens and he dies, the rest of the troupe turns their back on her. So she has to leave. Her father shuns her.
I thought she shunned him.
I feel like it was both ways.
They said that she came to visit him and didn't really seem in any way interested in him.
I feel like it went both ways. Right? Because, I mean, why? I mean, if there was a boy and then the boy died and then there's no mom and then there's just this girl and she comes back and then the girl knows the day you're supposed to die. I feel like it's just like remembering legacies of your mother kind of thing.
Oh.
I could be reading more into that though. That definitely could be my interpretation. Actually, I'm going to say that probably is my interpretation.
I'm also like, I didn't get that the implication was people with what they call it, testicular feminization syndrome. But I looked it up, it's now called androgen insensitivity syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't get the feeling that they were particularly a vessel of violence or anything like that.
Well, I think it's because of how sudden it's brought on. Like that information's dropped on us. Right? Like how just like out of the blue we're like, and what? Like how out of the blue we are Felissa Rosed.
Right. Sleepaway Kid? What?
We're like, what? Huh?
I really want to know if Koji Suzuki has seen Sleepaway Kid.
Oh my God. Yeah. But
really want to know.
also at the same time, like if you think back on the lore, if you think back, and that's why I like want to bring it back to the stories. I want to bring it back to the lore. I want to bring it back to um and and Statue Man, Eno Ozunu.
Gyoji. Gyojo. Gyojo. Because it's Gyoja. It's gyoza without a C. A J instead of a Z.
Actually, it's both. It's both. It's both. I am learning here. It is both. After her mom throwing herself into the volcano, I feel like their relationship would have been strained and she might have blamed him. Yeah,
That's true. Yeah, probably.
I was like, I feel like there's a reasons. Yeah, it was just a mess.
Yeah, I wasn't implying they were like super close.
It just felt rough. I'd love to watch an interview of us thinking. Yeah, for real. Same. It's some Ari Aster level stuff. But and why I bring it back to like lore and stories and like religions and such is because bringing it back to Statue Man and his special eyes. Shigendu, the supernatural, religion.
Yeah,
the one founded.
That I know.
And Shintoism was the other big situation. There was somewhere I was going with Shintoism with my thought. Oh, but they both tie back to these roots where they both come back to having these very rich storytelling cultural elements, and they also have these queer elements as well, like with they have the queer and hermaphroditic elements that we discovered earlier today when you and I were researching. I can't remember.
Yeah. Even samurais had I guess a class of warrior that was homosexual. Like in I guess feudal Japan. And
yeah.
Older, and there was I mean it's like a lot of cultures in their ancient versions there was not as much prejudice, and even people who were gay or trans or like Sadaku, they were revered. They were seen as a blessing.
Oh yeah. I know
once again colonialism.
I wish I could find it where we saw it earlier. I hate that I had to restart my computer earlier because so many of the things I had open, I had to close. And I'm like, I don't know where any of them are now. But I definitely encourage you guys to kind of like dig into it and research if it tickles your fancy, and kind of piques your interest. It's very fascinating.
Yeah. And another thing we found interesting to look up.
Oh, there it is. Hold on.
yokai.
I found it. I'm so sorry. Hold on. I found it. During the Meiji period, Nanshuko started to become discouraged due to their rise of sexology with Japan and the process of westernization. However, during the Second Sino-Japan War and World War II, these should sound very similar to you. The Chinese mocked and insulted poi and the Japanese as homosexuals and presented it as proof of their perversion and being uncivilized. The only time homosexual sodomy has been banned in Japan was for a short time for 8 years in 1872 to 1880 due to Western influence. It's always white dudes, yo. Western influence.
That's what I was thinking. Like she was a blessing and therefore more, I guess, susceptible to psychic gifts. Yeah, I think that's like why her power was so much stronger than her mother's. Was that she had more of a capacity for it.
Yeah, well, it's like Native Americans when they talk about like two-spirit.
Yeah, exactly the same thing. I think.
Yeah, they're a little different. It is a little different.
Conceptually, it's exactly the same.
It's how to embody both, to be able to embody both male and female. It does make you like. Conceptually, it does make you more. I mean, technically, you are a more whole person.
Yeah.
I do want to point out we are not experts, so please don't come for us, people. Please don't.
However, if you have a correction for something we have done wrong, by all means, tell us.
Please be nice.
We are humble. Nice. We would love to know the truth if we have misrepresented or said something wrong.
Yes, we love education. We love kind education. Please and thank you.
Yokai.
Oh, these were so much fun to study.
I know. So if you don't know, yokai is kind of a catch-all word for Japanese creatures of folklore. Anything supernatural, really. Ghosts, demons.
Yeah, they're like
kitsune.
They're like the Japanese boogeyman, essentially. Yeah.
And these are some that we discovered that we think resonate with Sadaku. I'll let you talk about Hanya.
Hanya demons were so cool. You kind of get like a taste of the Hanya demon in the chapter with Yoko, because it's the mask in which Yoko starts crying about, and she's like, meh. And he's like, are you teaching her about demons? And she's like, what? No. There's 3 different types of Hanya demons. Yeah, she's too young for demons.
Teach her when she's older.
That's it. That's right, Mom. There's 3 different types. They have a couple of different colors. Their colors that they kind of like resonate with are white, black, red, and green. Green represents anger.
Yes.
And red represents jealousy. Interesting
that it's flipped.
Well, like it's also a different culture.
Yeah, I was going to say culturally it's flipped, which I think is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Just like how black and white are considered different in different cultures, like
same with like red and green. Same with red and green. A lot of the time, like one is rage, one is passion, one is jealousy. A lot of the time, it's very interesting. These are giving El Kukui vibes. Yeah, El Kukui vibes. That's what I was talking about earlier. I was like, it's like El Cuco. Yeah, it's like
I was like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's the Japanese El Cuco.
It is. Oh, so exciting. Yeah. Oh god, I lost my okay.
Anya. Anya Deem. And the colors, you're talking about the colors.
Yes, there's like a couple of colors. If you want to know more, highly encourage you to go kind of take a look. There's a whole lot about them. One of the things that I found really interesting that kind of reflected it for me for a little bit beyond the mask was with the what like there's 3 different types of Hanya demons. There's like, "Aw, she's turning into a Hanya demon." There's, "Oh no, we have a Hanya demon." And then there's like, "Well, that's a fucking Hanya demon. Can't go back." Like, and I just kind of love how we kind of see with Sadako. I feel like Benedict Cumberbatch saying penguin. I feel like I'm never pronouncing Sadako's name the same way ever. A penguin, penguin, uh, pinging. But yeah, it's very fun, very cool. There's also snakes, that are mentioned towards the end, and it kind of had something to do along there too. I can try to post it in the show notes. Hold on.
We can post them in the Discord afterwards.
I was gonna say we can post them in the Discord. I can also, I can post them in the Discord afterwards because I don't think I have the thing anymore. So yes, so continue with yours.
Yeah, and the 2 I kind of found, it was funny because we found these completely separately. Just like, look up Hanya demons, and I'm like, look up Onryu.
Yeah.
But they're both kind of more vengeful spirits. Like an Onryu is the ghost of people who died with such strong passions, jealousy or rage or hatred that they can't pass on, and they are wrathful spirits who seek vengeance on everything they were encountered. And they were often the victims of some kind of great violence or tragedy or catastrophe. But they're always associated with violence and vengeance. And then the Kyokatsu, I found while looking up the other one and was like, what? A Koikatsu is a ghostly skeletal spirit which rises out of wells to scare people. They are formed from bones which were improperly disposed of by being discarded down a well. They may come from a murder or suicide victim, and the lack of a proper burial and egregious disrespect creates a powerful grudge in this bones, which then translates as angry ghost.
Angry ghost.
Angry ghost.
Oh, and we did the trolley problem already. Okay, sweet.
Yay.
Whalebone ghost.
Right? When I was reading it, I was like, no way. Whalebones.
All right. So our book-alikes. I already mentioned Tombs earlier. Great manga. Highly recommend.
I think Junji Ito was just great. Nothing But Black and Teeth
sequels
is a little shorty by Cassandra Kah, and it's pretty much just about different types of yokai. But Onryu are particularly mentioned in it, and it's a really cool novel, and I love her writing.
she's amazing.
We got our sequels. Film-alikes.
Our film-alikes. We have The Autopsy of Jane Doe and Barbarian.
I don't want to say anything about the Autopsy of Jane Doe. Just if you haven't seen it, watch it. It is not what I expected, but it goes very well with this story.
Yes. And then also same with Barbarian. There's no way to talk about Barbarian except to experience Barbarian. So if you've seen Barbarian, feel free to message me and we can talk about how these go very, very well together. If you haven't yet, then also message me and maybe we can find a time to watch Barbarian, because I am always down to watch Justin Long. So let's go. Okay. We've mentioned this time and time and time again. Up until chapter 10, we were at a 3 rating.
Yeah.
Once we just kept going, and we were very shocked at how this book, we just realized, was just a 5-star book for us.
Right.
It ticked all the boxes for Laura and I. It had the research component. It had the long-lasting effects. It had the, it's going to live rent-free in our mind. For me, it scratched the compassion elements, the psychological elements. Not psychological, but the philosophical, that's the word, philosophical elements. It was very good. I was very surprised. And the setup in the beginning, I love when a setup is so good that I don't even notice it the first go round. And when I finish the book and then I go back and look at it, I'm like, it's all there.
It was here all along.
It was all right there.
Like, I found the investigation aspect interesting enough to keep reading. I wasn't hating it. Hating on the main characters, sure. But then it got to a point where I was like, oh my god. Oh my god. I'm crying now. I'm angry.
I sent
everything, and so good.
I sent Laura a time lapse earlier today of me reading the chapter that usually makes it usually for people, it will make or break this book. And I sent Laura and our fellow ghoul in the crypt. I sent them a time lapse of me reading that chapter, and I had to stop because I was crying, and I had to like go back and reread, and I was like, I can't. I was a mess.
This also gets filed in my favorite subgenre of horror, which I like to call good for her.
Yeah, okay.
I think it qualifies as a good for her.
I see, this goes in one of my favorite subgenres as people problems. Which I would so put the show in a watch alike category, but oh god, it's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite social questions. What do we owe each other? What is it we owe each other? Do we owe each other anything? What is this? What is our social obligation to each other? I would also put this. I'm gonna mention Russian Doll. I would put this under Russian Doll. Yeah, I absolutely would. And The Good Place. Yeah, I would. Yeah, for show alikes, I would absolutely put this with Russian Doll and The Good Place, which is wild and insane to say out loud with the content matter, but also I don't think I have a rating right now. I don't think it's a 5-star though. Definitely fits in good for her for me. I'm here for that. Look, as long as you didn't be like DNF, that's fine. And if you came to the chat and we were able to change some opinions for you,
yeah, we didn't have our usual what changed for you slide because we knew it wasn't gonna change for us.
Mackenzie sadly was unable to finish the book due to her Camelarian incident. I guess we'll have to have her tell you guys in the first reading sprint for Vengeful Bitch. But yeah, other than that, them's the slides, y'all. We did
Yeah.
it.
We just
Thanks everyone for
gotta.
coming.
Are we doing the giveaway now, winner now,
Oh,
or are we
shoot.
announcing it on the
I
Discord?
can do it real quick. Give me 1 second. The winner is it is.
Need to pull Jeff in here to do a drum roll.
I know, right? Um,
That's the best.
our winner is Claudia.
Yay! Congratulations, Claudia!
Congrats, Claudia!
Yay!
You won. Yeah, it was
Thanks for
between
being our ride or die.
Sydney, Claudia, B, Mandy, and Noodle Kid,
Hey!
and Vimaroba Books.
Woo!
So, and Ophelia's Violence won. Congratulations. So, Claudia, if you DM me, if you DM me at Kaylee Creates,
Your
DM
little
me.
kid? Hey!
Oh,
Sorry. I got excited.
you're Maggie's friend. Hi. This makes me so happy. Yay! Claudia, if you DM me on Instagram, we can work out. This is DMing. This is how we type. If you, because it's not this. This isn't how we
We're on
type.
NCIS. We're the tech
Yep.
girl on NCIS.
If you DM me on the gram, because we can figure out the details on how to get everything sent to you. And your lovely goodies. Yeah. Other than that, you are all set and golden. And thanks, guys. We will see y'all. Yeah, we'll see y'all when we do the reading sprint, our first reading sprint for October. Don't forget, we'll post the calendar over the next week. Send us your theme requests and book requests, book suggestions for November.
Yeah.
We will see y'all.
See you on the Discord. And
yeah. We'll see y'all there. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Oh, I just hit stop cam, not the end stream button.